don't deserve that hair!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they truly hold up. I'm here with Andrew, and also, no Kyle again.
Kyle left us. Kyle's gone
It's
through the end of April.
It's sad looking in his
Through the end of
seat
April.
and just seeing no Kyle.
I don't know. I don't miss the smell.
It's the mustache for me.
I've gotten used to that mustache over the course of the past few years. So
And-
it's the odor. It's the stench. Yeah. And just kind of the cloud that he brings that hangs over. It's like we're constantly being
Kind of
pissed on.
It's like being in a Silent Hill game.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one wants to be in it,
No.
but they're in it for certain
They're
reasons.
trapped. They are trapped. So, Kyle, if you're listening, you're a black hole. I'm kidding. That's too mean.
And that's it. That's
That's
the
it.
episode.
Yep.
Kyle is a black hole.
hole.
Yeah. All three of his friends will let him know what we said on this episode. Anyway, speaking of black holes and cupboards.
Hey, nice segue there.
Yeah. We watched Indian in the Cupboard, which is...
The Indian in the cupboard.
And it was an Indian, and he was in a cupboard.
A Native American,
I don't even know how we're going to...
I mean, it is what it is.
We are calling it what it is, and we're going to proceed...
Indian was a commonly used word back in that time.
Right.
Well,
Well,
you still
then-
had the Cleveland Indians. You had the Washington Redskins. Those
Which is used in this movie, yeah.
No precursors here. We're just going to talk. It is
Yeah,
what it is.
whatever the phrase is, I guarantee you it's not the ones used in this movie, but we're going to proceed with this movie because it's what we know.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Andrew. What do you know about this
Oh,
movie
I
from a
mean-
youthful past?
This is one of my favorite childhood movies in my top 3 easily. It might be my number 1. I watched it 1,000 times. I hadn't watched it in years, but when I watched it just a couple hours ago, I remembered everything. Literally everything. It all came flooding back. It hit me like a ton of bricks. It takes me back. I had the VHS. I had the VHS copy where it had the little keyhole and the plastic key that came with it with the little bear figurine.
Yeah.
I mean, damn.
We can't talk about this movie without talking about that VHS because that
No.
VHS was really cool.
Yeah.
And it was while supplies last. And I don't think I got some of the supplies because mine was the regular VHS. I don't think I had the little bear.
I had a couple figurines of him, but I also had some like movie quality ones that I'm not sure where my mom got them. But I had all of the 3 or 4 main ones. You had Little Bear, you had Boone, you had is it Tommy or Timmy? Tommy, Steve Coogan's character.
Yeah, sure.
I think it was just 3. Yeah, because it was Boone and his horse, Little Bear,
Medic.
and then Tommy the medic. Yes,
Yeah. Who was British.
he was British. Steve Coogan,
Yeah.
great
Yes.
actor, great comedic actor.
And not only that, but he was in Night of the Museum as a medic.
Shit, he was.
Yeah. I was hoping you put 2 and 2 together. Yeah.
That's what inspired it.
So Night of the Museum is a sequel to The Indian in the Cupboard.
I mean, it definitely
has to be.
it definitely inspired it, or had to have some sort of inspiration. I wouldn't say it was
Yeah.
the main source of inspiration, but it was one of them.
Yeah. I remembered this movie a lot. Like, this was one where I remember all the lines of
Yep.
dialogue. I
Oh, yeah.
remember the beats in the movie. I didn't quite, as a kid, put it all together. Like, I kind of just watched it, and now I'm kind of more of an understanding as an adult, which we'll get into. But I watched this a lot. I didn't even realize how much I'd watched it as a kid because
Yeah.
I vividly remember it. And then we started watching it, and I was like, oh, shit, I remember all this.
Every last detail.
It's crazy.
It's a kid's like true escape into imagination and I don't know, euphoria is a good word, but like
can't even
unbridled
remember-
imagination. Like it triggered all of my nerdisms and like things that
I can't even remember where I parked the car in the complex now, but I do remember this
Yeah.
movie and the dialogue.
Yeah.
And then we got the dad from Step Brothers in. as-
Richard Jenkins. Yeah.
So this is a prequel to Step Brothers, and then Night of the Museum is a sequel to this movie.
And Mad Men. This was before what's his name grew up and became a marketing exec in New York
Yeah,
City.
so-
Even though this is 40 years later, but
So you guys, if you're out there and you need something to really start your Mad Men, Night of the Museum, Step Brothers,
Pete Campbell.
Pete Campbell.
Pete
yeah.
Campbell. He got his
Well,
start
it's this
here.
movie.
But no, dude, like this one, when we were young boys. We had our action figures and we had our
Yeah.
play sets and our Legos, and we would build castles and forts and, create different worlds and storylines and adventures. And like this movie took the cake. Like it was the preeminent example of what we were going for
Right.
in our minds.
Because I played with
Yeah.
my action figures like that, where it's like all the action figures would meld together in one
Yeah.
world. Like you would have, and we'll get into the scene that I'm talking about, but like you have like RoboCop fighting
Vader.
Alien, and then you have wrestlers everywhere, and
Yeah.
G.I. Joes on the same mission against the bad wrestlers and the bad G.I. Joes who also were on the same mission. A lot of weird play time, I guess,
Yeah.
as kids.
I will say I keep harping on this, but I was so obsessed with this movie to the point where my mom asked my uncle to have someone like make me a model of the cupboard, like an actual physical.
I love this story.
Yeah, and it had a keyhole, had a key and everything, and I would keep it in like the front living room, and I vividly remember like putting them in there, like locking them up when I went to bed, and like waking up and hoping that they would come to life when the sun came up. Never did, obviously. But
What happened to the cupboard?
Oh, man. I got infested with termites, and we had to throw it away. I was so distraught. I was so sad.
You didn't like have your mom burn it like in a ceremonial like art?
We
or
should
anything?
have. I think they just put it out in the street and it got picked up by trash collection the next day. But that dream
Don't you
died.
love that childhood memory? Something you like just love that much. Just got picked up by some guys making an hourly wage.
That and our family hamster getting killed.
Please. How?
My sister took it outside into our garden and tried to bury it.
While it was alive?
While it was alive, she thought she was making a fort for it. And, I remember my mom going out there freaking out like, Rosie, no, Rosie. And it had all this mulch in its mouth, and you could tell that it was like freaking out. And luckily it didn't die then. My mom took it back in, but it was dead upon the morning when we woke up. Oh,
God.
and
You should have took it to the vet so we could have gotten an autopsy.
this is even more fucked up. My mom wanted to bury it, so she kept it in our garage freezer where we forgot about it for 2 years.
No.
I'm not even kidding you.
No.
Yep. It was shoved away in like a, not the Pop-Tarts. What are the toaster strudel box in the back corner? One of those like industrial
She just
size.
shoved it into a toaster.
She
strudel.
wrapped it in a plastic bag multiple times, put it in the box, threw it in the back corner, and we forgot about it. And then one day, we remembered, and we decided to bury her on the side of the house. Yeah. I'm sorry that I had to segue into that, but
No,
you're talking about childhood memories, sad
Childhood trauma.
trauma. That's one of them.
Was that like a plague for you? The cupboard got like infested with termites, and then your sister tried to bury your
Yeah, I think that's why
hamster alive.
That's why I'm so fucked up now.
Yeah.
That's why my humor is
makes
just so
sense.
dark.
It makes sense.
How could it not be?
I didn't have any of those childhood
I
memories.
wish we never did.
I didn't even have the cupboard. My dad would have never.
Yeah.
The first little termite that got into the house, because he was such a neat freak, he would have burned the house to the ground and rebuilt.
It's a shame because like it looked almost identical, at least from my memory. I had the two panelings on the side and had the main front door, 2 levels.
That's such a sweet gift. That is like a really good childhood memory.
Yeah, and after that thing got thrown away, I still held on to like the figurines, and I remember I kept them in this like felt box that had like I don't even know how you describe like the lock to it. It was like a piece of ribbon with some like ivory that like swung down and like connected to the front loop. But I had those figurines in there forever. And I think I sadly just gave them to Goodwill like 5 years ago. I probably shouldn't have, and it kind of hurts me to think about me just carelessly getting rid of them. But
It's a brave little toaster moment right there.
yeah, it's all
coming together.
It's all coming back.
Yeah.
So that's why I said this really hits all of the emotion.
I didn't have any of that. I had the VHS, and I did watch it incessantly. I was big on this movie as a kid. I would watch it as I was playing with my own action figures.
Yeah,
and I think
100%.
I think that was like a big thing for me, was pretending that my stuff was coming to life.
Yeah.
And
That's what you had to do.
did you ever have a fear of your toys as a kid? Did you ever think that, like, when you were laying in bed at night and your mom would like be like, "Good night, Andrew," and kiss you on the cheek and then tuck you in, and she'd walk out of the room, and she would close the door and turn the lights off, and you would see all the toys in your room just turn into like mutant creatures. It looked like that they were going to come stab your heart out in the middle of the night. Did that ever happen to you, or was that just me?
I never thought of them like coming alive to hurt me. I think the hope was that they would come to life to like interact and be my friend. There was no like negative element,
See,
interjected on that.
I thought a little bit about like Sid's toys. So I like tried to be good to mine because Sid was mean to his toys in Toy Story, and he had all those come back to life in like this malicious way. Not really malicious, but vengeful way, I guess.
Yeah.
And I always thought that if I was mean to my toys, that they would come to life in the middle of the night and just beat the dog shit out of me.
No, I went in like waves with like certain toys and like what I prioritized and what I would like talk to. And I don't talk to. I mean, I'm trying to like.
We talk to our toys.
Yeah,
like,
I guess the one that I just devoted the most attention to, but I never. And then I get bored with that one and move on to something else. But there was never a looming fear with my toys. Those were like my safe havens. Those were truly like an escape or an elevation of my mind's capacity. So there was nothing negative attached with it.
What was your favorite toy / series of toys? Like my brother had G.I. Joes. I was big into wrestling, so I had a bunch of wrestlers.
So the figurines that I had from this movie.
Really?
Those were up there. Okay. I had a bunch of Batman toys.
Yeah. I had some of those too.
That centered around Batman and Robin.
Batman Forever, probably.
Batman
too.
Forever.
Yeah.
I think it was more Batman Forever, but I had the Mr. Freeze. But I also had like the Riddler and whatnot. Those were big. It wasn't Tonka, but they were like, I forgot what they were. That was some sort of like construction oriented.
What is up with like little boys and being obsessed with construction equipment?
Little boys are blue collar at heart, baby. Young kids, they're blue collar at heart.
I would make my grandfather take pictures of construction equipment as we were driving down the road. Like we would go to Florida every year for Disney World or something, and every time we drive, I would force him to take pictures of construction equipment. So like there was a few years ago, we were flipping through a bunch of photo albums in my grandfather's basement, and it was a bunch of just like random construction equipment that he had kept because I told him to take that. That's so sweet of him, though. Those are good times, but he developed them and kept them in a photo album.
Don't you remember the first time you laid your eyes on a bobcat? I don't mean the animal.
Freak out, yeah.
I mean the dump truck or whatever the hell it was. What do you call that thing? It's not a dump truck, but it's got the big old like barrel in the front.
I work in the fitness industry.
It picks up dirt. I'm illiterate and probably sound stupid. I do sound stupid, but the yellow thing.
So all the listeners out there, all the blue collar listeners, can you send us an Instagram messaging? Let us know what that Andrew's talking about.
Another toy that meant a lot to me were Woody and Buzz Lightyear.
Oh yeah,
and because my name is Andrew, I wrote Andy on the bottom with permanent marker because I could.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah.
I had the Small Soldiers, which may be a movie we get to down the road.
I had those as well.
Those were big.
Yeah.
I think I had a Buzz Lightyear too.
Jurassic Park figurines from the movie.
Lost World, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we mentioned in our Lost World episode. Yeah.
The truck and the thing that Jeff Goldblum drove. I don't remember what the
I had the big truck and the big T-Rex.
Yep,
and the T-Rex, you could shove a bunch of shit down its gullet and pull him out of his stomach. It was really, really weird for a child to like reach his hand into a T-Rex's stomach.
But we did it.
We did it.
We did it with love.
One other thing I want to talk about real quick is the director of this movie, Frank Oz.
Oh. Legend.
Yeah, legend. I did not know he directed this movie, and I was like, Frank Oz, that sounds so familiar. Where is that from? And then turns out he is the voice of Yoda.
He is Yoda.
Yeah, he is Yoda.
When I saw that, I think it was when I was buying or renting the movie. It was like directed by Frank Oz. I knew right away. I was like, hey, I didn't know Yoda did this. That's pretty cool.
I had no clue. As a kid, I definitely didn't know, but it makes sense because there was a Star Wars scene in there, and it turns out George Lucas gave him the rights to Star Wars to make this movie, which we'll cross that.
We'll get down that path in a second.
Did you know this movie's based off a childhood novel?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know
by
that.
Lynn Reed Banks.
Yeah, and did not know that.
I don't believe I ever read the novel.
I definitely didn't.
I remember people reading it in grade school, around like 3rd or 4th grade.
It makes sense. I bet this is a better book than it is a movie.
Probably. Lynn Reed Banks is actually pretty prolific. She wrote a lot of children's novels. She's not Roald Dahl level,
Yeah.
but she's probably not far off.
Yeah.
She is British. And
Good-
she died a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, R.I.P.
April 9th, I think is what I
Wow.
saw. So R.I.P. to Lynn for this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Look at this. We're doing a memorial episode.
It's
But
all coming full circle.
it always does. R.I.P. though, truly like a great story now. And
Classic story.
And she got it, made into a movie. That's pretty successful.
Yeah.
For any book. But
And I think she sold like 20 million copies of the book worldwide.
Oh,
which
wow.
is, her and her family are set for life at that point.
nailed it.
Yeah. But she had other big names too. It wasn't just the Indian in
Yeah.
the Cupboard. There were other ones too.
Speaking of big numbers, how did this movie do?
Well, it did something.
That's always a great start.
Yeah,
I mean, Derek Evans out there would tell you that that's a good way to start.
It was released on July 14th of 95. Had a budget of 45 million, which is,
That's pretty hefty.
it's pretty hefty for
A 95 film.
I would say there were probably I bet most of it went towards special effects of
Had to have.
of this movie. Had to have, because
Yeah.
they were pretty solid. If we're being honest, I thought they were.
But it seemed like a lot of it was green screen effects.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been that elaborate.
I don't know. I don't know. But $45 million budget, and altogether earned 35.7 mil. So it was
Womp,
a
womp,
flop.
womp.
Huge flop.
Which also doesn't surprise me.
No, I mean, it kind of does, though. Honestly, I feel like this would be such a good movie for kids. I feel like this is a good, wholesome family movie that you take the whole gang to and, escape for a night. I think you have to have younger kids to make that truly effective. But
This is not a parent movie.
no, but you do it for your children.
You know what's funny is I have a lot of childhood movies that since starting this podcast my dad likes to talk about. This is not one that ever comes up. And,
I don't know.
And I watch this one a lot, and I'm sure he would say, "Oh, that was a cute movie," but I don't think he's like, "Oh, I really want to see that one again."
I'd be curious to see what my parents said about it, because I was obsessed with it. They probably watched it too many times to even count when I was young. But I wonder what their impressions or thoughts are about it. But yeah, box office flop. I imagine they made up some more of that money on the release to VHS. I don't know, but
the VH sales probably carried
yeah,
this movie.
and the way they market it with the toys and everything, they had to have made up some ground. But how much, I don't know.
I imagine the toys being released is because this was a huge flop in the box office.
Yeah, but I also think that it was probably part of the plan. I just feel that it only makes sense to release toys.
Right. But
for that.
how often did you see a VHS release with a toy?
That's just the only one that comes to mind.
Right.
I'm
I
sure you
remember-
could find some down the line, but this is the only one that really.
So it was a unique marketing strategies that may have come out of. I'm curious. That's a question for the executives and the producers, but maybe it was a thing of can we make our money back by offering this up too with the VHS?
Maybe.
But I'm sure the VHS sales were fine because a lot of kids had this movie and we all watched it.
Yeah.
So. In Alabama.
And in Kentucky.
And in Kentucky. All right. All the Southern boys love the Indian in the Cupboard. All right, let's get started. Let's talk about this one blow by blow. I have a feeling this one's going to go pretty quickly. Andrew, where does this movie open up?
Our lead character, Omri.
Which I want to make a statement now. I thought was a stupid name when I was a kid, and I thought it was a stupid name now. But then I read that Lynn Reed Banks wrote this book as a goodnight tale to her son, who was named Omri. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I can't make fun of that anymore. That's actually very plausible then.
Yeah.
I was curious at the beginning, but
It's still an odd name. It opens on Omri leaving school, running into his mother, on the sidewalk, down the steps, and he asks the question, "Who's at home?" "No one." And he goes home, and it's a little surprise, a little birthday.
it's his 9th birthday.
It's his 9th birthday. Was it 9? I don't even remember.
It was
what
9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solid age there.
They get inside and they have this birthday party, and it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Kid's happy. The family's established as a very kind of but like a very loving family.
Yeah,
like
it's
even
a
the
good
brother's not like.
They have their run-ins with each other, but like it's a good family. It's a good situation.
Yeah, the brother presents him a gift.
Yeah.
And the gift is the cupboard. Yeah.
Before that, of course, he got, some cool action figure from his other brother, and then like a brand new skateboard
Yeah.
from the parents. But yeah,
And
the cupboard is a nice polished piece of wood.
Antique.
Yeah, it's been cleaned up by the brother.
Yeah.
I don't know what the significance or like why he thought that would be a good idea to give to your brother.
That
but
was qualm one for me because
Yeah.
I was like, because he wasn't that much older. He was maybe
like 4 years.
4 or 5 years older. I, as a kid, couldn't imagine if my brother gave me a cupboard.
I'd be like,
You want me to do with this?
what is this?
What? I mean, what am I
Why?
going to put in this? But Omri's over the moon. He thinks it's cool.
Yeah,
it's like his gift of the night.
A nice piece of
But
furniture.
There's one problem though.
Doesn't have a key.
Doesn't have a key.
But thank God his mother just collects random brass
Qualm
keys.
too. So
Like she has it's like a Baskin Robbins bucket. I'm pretty sure is what it was.
Yeah.
It was Baskin Robbins, and she just
it's
pours
the
it
same
out.
bucket that your grandmother would have all of her yarns in.
Yeah.
Except this is just keys.
Or a bunch of like pens and batteries and like scotch tape,
But she has a bunch of keys laying in this bucket, and they get together. And it's a very like heartwarming moment
Yeah.
with him and his mom. And they're trying on every key. They're laughing, and then finally,
It's the second key.
it's the second key.
There's not many tries.
Right. So
And this is like a brass, like iron key. Like it
Yeah.
is nice. And it just happens to work in this lock that
Yeah.
the brother found somewhere, on the side of the street. So
just a lot of random stuff.
what are the
happening.
odds? And then we find out that the mom's dying grandmother gave it to her.
Which I was like, oh, come on.
Just odd.
Yeah, I was like,
I mean,
this movie's starting off really dumb.
honestly, talking about it now, it's kind of like,
Stupid.
but in the moment, it didn't bother me. I guess maybe I was just kind of captivated.
You were doing what we started this show about. You get caught in the nostalgia of it, and it kind of takes you on this ride. But when you wake up into reality, you see that a mom's trying random brass keys that are dead.
Regardless, these are small hiccups that, it's not that big of a deal. Regardless, the key works, and
They keep coming, though.
there's no, you're being dramatic. The key works, and, cool. Neat. Awesome. He's got a matching key.
And I remember he goes to school the next day,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
nothing happens with the cupboard that night. But
Yep.
he goes to the school the next day and meets up with Patrick, right?
Who gives him a Native American, figurine.
Yeah, and it's
Go
kind of
well-
like an old school, little figurine.
Yeah,
It's like-
it's definitely been around the block a bit,
Yeah.
but it looks cool for someone who's 9 years old.
And Patrick's like, "Hey, I got you this for your birthday," and it's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, everyone's just so precious in this movie.
It would-
Everyone's like so kind-hearted.
And he's like, it'd go well with your cupboard, I think.
Yeah. So,
So-
and it gives him the idea to put the figurine into the cupboard.
Yeah.
And this movie's moving quick.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of plot details.
I will say,
in
I
it.
think he may have given him that figurine before they went back to school, but that's how I remembered
I
it.
remember it during the daylight though.
But his birthday was in the daylight, so it might have been
Yeah.
that day, as an aside, after all the gifts were given. But anyways, he has the figurine. He has the matching key that somehow fits with the keyhole. He puts the figurine in the cupboard and locks it and goes
This
to
is
bed.
the next night, by the way.
Yeah, he goes to bed. He wakes up and there's some rattling in the cupboard. And it's like, what's going on? Is the brother's rat somehow in there? What's happening?
And they establish early on that there's this rat in a ball rolling around the house,
it's
which
his
is
brother's
important
pets.
later.
Yes.
It's important later. But
What was it? What was it? Gilly? Is that the name of the rat?
I don't know.
Gimli or
All I
Gilly
heard was
or-
rat multiple times.
Regardless, don't get a rat as a pet. But he sees the cupboard rattling. He opens it, and he doesn't see anything. But he looks down in the dark bottom right corner, and what is there, Chase?
The figurine has come to life.
Yes.
And has a name.
His name is Little Bear.
I don't know if he gave him the name right away. I
He
think.
didn't. He said his
But
tribal name,
But for reference, we have Little Bear
Yep.
now who's entered the scene.
and he's terrified.
Yeah. Sees a big giant, uses the word giant
Yeah.
a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, Omri, out of fear, shuts the door and locks it back, right?
Yes, well, because he has to go to school. His
Yeah.
dad is calling him. Richard Jenkins is coming up the stairs. He's about to enter his sacred realm, and he doesn't want anyone to see this little figurine that's come to life. So he shuts the door and locks it and leaves and goes to school. And at first, he doesn't seem like too rattled that his toy came to life, but
I want to bring up this point. So was this the first day of school where they have the book reports?
yes.
Because for whatever reason,
Oh, no, it was not, this was not the first one.
okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But so he goes to school and he rushes back home because he's kind of scared but also curious.
Yeah.
And he comes back and opens the cupboard and he's turned back into a figurine.
Yep.
So he was kind of bummed out, I think.
He was sad because, like, you could tell, like, when his dad approached him and he was ready to go to school, he was able to quickly turn it off and kind of forget about it. But once he was there, he was antsy and fidgety, like, all day. He was thinking about this Indian, Native American, in his cupboard back home that had come to life. And think about it. Like, if you were 9 years old and that happened to you and you were stuck away at school, what would you be thinking about?
Yeah,
I'd be, like, trying to, like, call out sick and get home as soon as I possibly could.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets home and it's starting to get dark this time. He unlocks it and it's back into its figurine state. So
Yeah.
it's no longer alive.
And I think at this point he's like starting to be like, oh, was I just imagining things?
yeah.
So, I mean, I would at that, I don't know, at that age, I'd probably be pretty intent on what I saw.
Also, we didn't touch upon this, but I want to because I don't know, for whatever reason, this like stuck with me. I remembered it. Omri, when he opens it, you know, he's like, "It's okay, you don't have to be afraid," or whatever. He sticks out his hand or his finger.
And he stabs
them with his little dagger.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that.
I
part.
love that aspect as a kid. Like, that is just something that is, I don't know, it fascinates the imagination of the figurine coming to life, attacking you, or like, you know,
and Omri also
defending itself.
talks at a whisper the whole time.
Yeah.
The biggest annoyance I had with this movie is they picked one song for this entire movie, and they play it over and over and over again.
It's the theme. It didn't bother me.
Over
Like,
and
it bothered you?
over again.
Honestly, I love that theme.
Well, it wasn't so bad at the beginning because I thought it's a good theme, but they play it.
They play it a lot,
and they play it in the wrong spots. They play it over every little moment. And keep in mind, if anyone hasn't seen this movie or seen it in a while, I'm sure this is going to jar a memory loose. For whatever reason, Frank Oz likes to do this close-up of Omri's face.
He does it all the time.
All the time.
That is where I was like, all right, we don't need to do that.
And swells the music behind it. And it's painfully long. These are very long shots. And this kid is not a great-looking kid to look at.
I wasn't going to say it, but he's an interesting-looking 9-year-old or 10-year-old boy.
He's normal. He's a normal child.
He's a normal-looking kid.
Yeah, he's how I would look. If you
Yeah.
put the camera on me, he has buck teeth.
His eyes are wide
and kind of cross-eyed.
And he's a normal, average-looking, not Hollywood at all.
And poor kid, because I know that they have this camera hovering over him, and they're like, "Okay, look excited.
Yeah.
Now give us a slight smile. No, too much of a smile. Cross your eyes. Now give us a slight smile."
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like. It looks horrible, and it happens multiple times. It's one of my least favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
and it happens here too.
But anyways, back to the plot, back to the story. I don't want to harbor on poor Omri's face too much. It's not worth our time. But anyways, he gets back, and you know, like we said, the figurine is a figurine that's not living. But he goes to sleep, and sure enough, he wakes up, and it's rattling again, the cupboard, and he opens it, and this is where we learn his name. Because we didn't the previous day. So they have a conversation. His name is Little Bear. He is Iroquois, specifically of the Onondaga. Is that what it is? Onondaga?
Yeah.
Onondaga, which is like a sect of the Iroquois. He was fighting in the French and Indian War on the side of the British, who, you know, didn't treat him well. Surprise, surprise.
A lot of history there.
Yeah.
And they're playing with the history.
It's very authentic.
Yeah, it's not. This is what intrigued me about this movie, because you're learning from him is how, I mean, you got this giant white guy, like white kid, I guess. This giant white kid, you know, hovering over him and being like almost like a dictator and a lord, even though that's not his intention.
Not at all.
And it plays with a lot of that history.
Yeah,
of the Native Americans.
And the actor that they got to play the Little Bear, his name is Lightfoot. He's, you know, of the Cherokee Nation.
And he played a very good role.
And I will say that they they really tried to make it as authentic as possible because they hired someone who was of the Onondaga tribe.
Yeah.
And like his outfit, his tattoos was authentic from the feet all the way up. And it took him like 3.5, 4 hours to get him into costume and character every single shoot.
Right.
So,
and we'll get to more of that detail.
We will.
In a few. But so he comes back to life, and now they're starting to have a conversation.
They start to become friends, and he understands he's kind of stuck here now. This is magic, but it's real life. And he starts to calm down because he realizes that Omri is just a kid. He's not the evil white man. He's not here to hurt him. He's not.
He goes through waves, though.
He does.
There's a few things that happen before he realizes he's a kid. Then he gets mad that he's a kid. Then he understands he's a kid,
and there's nothing he can do. But Omri helps him, settle in. He
gets him a teepee.
He gets him a teepee. He doesn't like it. It's made of plastic. But he takes the plastic teepee, puts it in the cupboard, shuts it, locks it, pulls it out, and it looks authentic.
Yeah, because Omri understands now that locking and unlocking the cupboard takes things in and out of reality. Yeah. And then there's one point in this whole thing before the teepee is the toy part, right? Where he's like curious. He puts all of his toys in there, or at least all these figurines. So he's got a dinosaur from Jurassic Park. He's got 2 figures from Star Trek. He's got RoboCop.
And he's got Darth Vader. And that goes back to Frank Oz got the rights to Star Wars without any huff from anybody because George Lucas appreciated his work as Yoda, so he let him have the Star Wars license. And I feel like George Lucas would appreciate this movie or just the story in general.
Yeah, George 100%. Lucas loves that childhood wonder. So Darth Vader's in there. He locks the cupboard, then opens it back up, and all these figures are just at war with each other.
Fighting. They're
shooting and fighting, and the T-Rex
swinging their lightsaber.
And so he freaks them out a little bit, so he locks it back because they all look at him at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're about to attack him, so it freaks Omri out. But
this just confirms that this cupboard and this key are magical and
magical.
Yeah, truly. There's no other way to.
I wonder if we shoved Omri into the cupboard if he'd come back as a plastic figurine. Do you ever wonder if it would have done that, or if you severed his finger and put it in the cupboard?
Plastic. What would happen? Because
these
figurines.
What if they took that rat that was running around,
and then you could just throw it away?
Yeah, if Omri was a cynical little child instead of
myself,
or like the rest of us, because Omri is very kind-hearted,
very sweet, very empathetic,
no bad bone in his body, and that is not the way that most children work. Not out of malicious intent, but just out of kind of curiosity.
Yeah,
that Andrew would have grabbed that rat, put it in the cupboard, and shut it to see what would happen.
Because I wouldn't want it stuck in the back of a freezer for 2 years. I want to get rid of it quickly.
Oh, Mama Weeman.
Take matters in my own hands here. Okay, yeah, we're divulging a bit. This is a 90-minute movie.
But that's a good thought. What would have happened? And
what would you have tried to put in that cupboard? I wouldn't have stopped there. I would not.
I don't know.
I would put pencils in there. I would have anything. Monopoly figurines. I guess that is another figurine that doesn't really count. But
does it turn into a car though?
Maybe.
Or does the dog turn into a little dog?
Yeah, you put a Hot Wheels car in there. Does it come back an actual miniature Lamborghini or Dodge Viper?
Does it have to be fully plastic? There's so many.
Does
questions.
It run on fuel or is it electric? Is it eco-friendly? What are the answers here?
Who knows? But we're digressing here and getting off track.
But this movie is, at this point, really revving up the childhood mind.
Yeah.
He's got his little miniature Native American friend who's alive and 3 inches tall, maybe?
Something like that.
Not even?
Not even.
And they start to form a friendship. Omri agrees to get him some supplies because he doesn't like his teepee. He wants to build him he wants a little bear to build his own longhouse. So he goes out to the yard and grabs a bunch of twigs and leaves and gives him some paper and stuff and
steals his dad's
tools his saws or whatever. This was a heavy part, but when he goes to school that next day, he brings back another Native American figurine that's of
an elder.
It's not the Iroquois tribe. It's of the Mohawk Nation. Yeah. It's an elder, but he has a longbow and arrows. And
this is where our first conflict comes in, too.
Yeah, and this is heavy.
Yeah.
This was heavy.
So Omri turns the key and opens it, and the old man sees Omri and freaks out and has a heart attack
and
and dies. And Little Bear comes over and he goes, "This man is dead." He was very blunt with it. He was like,
"This man's life is over."
He ceased to exist.
But that's like heavy for like a 6-year-old me.
Yeah.
It was heavy for me like watching it.
Think about it.
As
like,
an adult. Like
you haven't killed anybody. Omri has.
He's watching a miniature human die in front of him. He killed him.
Yeah, he caused a murder.
Yeah. But that's a very like real aspect of this movie that I enjoyed.
Well,
I wouldn't say I enjoyed the death, but like I enjoyed the element
it was kind of funny.
Of life and death, and
there's a little black humor in there that you open it, he sees a John, he has a heart attack and kicks the bucket. There is. I laughed.
There's another dark humor line in this movie. We'll get to that towards the end. But
he's like, "Well, we've got to bury him," and he's like, "No, we'll send him back." And this is when Little Bear has like a problem.
Yeah.
And this is when Little Bear starts to realize he's a kid. He's like, "You can't just send him back. You bring him forward. You've got to bury him, honor his corpse, whatever." But they ended up burying him, right?
They did. It was later. I don't, all of these scenes running together. There isn't much that happens, so it's kind of pathetic that I can't give everyone a play-by-play.
I don't remember where the scene happened,
so
but I do remember they buried him.
It's when...
Because they wrapped him in little cloth.
It's when he takes Little Bear out back to hunt.
Meanwhile, Omri's going to school and coming back, coming back, getting Little Bear food. And I got to point this out because this happens in multiple scenes, but... They go to school and they're doing a book report or they're writing their own narrative story.
Yes.
Mainly it's a book report, but Omri's writing his own story about...
The Indian in the Cupboard.
Yeah, the Indian in the Cupboard, which sounds good. But there's this one kid in there that's just fascinated with
Sam. JFK.
And he's just like talking about JFK.
JFK was the youngest president to ever serve the United States. JFK was a man of good intentions and moral superiority. It's like, okay.
I
weird.
laughed my ass off. This 8-year-old is just doing this book report on JFK.
The writers had to, this was their...
Oh my God, it was so funny.
This was their humor. This was their,
and
their gag.
And the weird part of it is that same music is swelling. We're sitting Omri and going through his emotions of, I left Little Bear at home. Is he okay? I'm worried about him. And all this. And you just get the narration of JFK's life. And Omri's like in this pensive like state while we talk about JFK.
So, here he is in school, but at home, Little Bear has his own little like sectioned area of his room. I loved this aspect because he now has his own little longhouse, his own little like tiny miniature home, but he also set up the fire truck with like the ladder to escape up to the coffee table or to get up on like a flat surface I don't know. Those were aspects that just
really cool.
Yeah.
Really
and then he gets hurt. Little Bear does. He doesn't really have husks as what Little Bear is requesting. He could have gotten him some like cotton swabs or whatever, but what does he do? He goes up to his brother's room in the morning, opens up like a chest of his and brings down like a medic soldier and puts him in.
Yep.
Closes it, locks it, opens it up, and it's like, this is Steve Coogan.
As a British soldier.
A British soldier in World War I who's a medic who, goes and heals Little Bear's wound. But I don't remember how he got even hurt at that point. But
yeah, I think he fell or Omri did something and knocked him off or something like that. I don't know.
It's irrelevant. It's not that important. But again, just such a... I don't know. I nerd out thinking about the possibilities here because, like, this is like a kid's just
fantasy. So, and I will say this to the movie because I know I've been kind of like dogging it a little bit, but the fantasy element is really detailed to a child's imagination,
and it's so good. It's believable. Like
that's why it captured our imagination. Because I thought the same things of like, if my toys came to life, how would they operate in this world at that size? And they're going through the motions with you and showing you. And he still requires food. He's like just small.
He's small.
He's like a human form. Yeah. So he's brought into this human world, and he's brought from a parallel universe, which will.
Well, I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah, I guess. It's briefly glossed over.
But we're rambling here, but moving the plot along, it sounds stagnant, but things starting to liven up here. Patrick, his buddy, who gave him the Little Bear figurine, wants to introduce something else to the group. And
Yeah, because Patrick somehow, I forgot how Patrick finds out that the cupboard brought Little Bear to life.
Patrick came over one day. This is okay. So backpedaling just a bit. So Richard Jenkins, the dad, approaches Omri about stealing his like blades and like tools. I don't know what blades and tools that he stole from him, but Omri volunteers to go grab them at the hardware store down the street in Brooklyn, wherever the neighborhood hardware store is. He gives him some change. He goes and buys them.
The weird punishment, because Omri says he buried his tools.
Yeah, he didn't go into detail.
He just said, I buried them.
I don't know where they are.
I buried them.
And his dad's like, all right.
I buried them. And as his father, instead of just being like,
well, where did you bury them?
Well, go unbury
or
them.
Go dig them up, you little shit.
Bring them to me before... Because my dad would have killed me.
Yeah.
And the parenting in this is a little off, and we'll get to more of that. But here's the first sequence of that.
He goes and grabs the saws or little blades or whatever the fuck it was that he gave a 2-inch Native American, literally 2 inches. And on his way back home, he gets approached by this bully who has horrible hair. He's like
Horrible.
like an awful mohawk. Maybe that was done on purpose. I don't know.
That's what they did in the 90s.
Yeah.
If you were a punk kid, you had a mohawk.
He's like, give me your money. Where is it?
I listen to the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, Ad Rock's my dad. He shoves him up against like a brick wall and takes his money. And at that point, he's like crying, but he runs into Patrick and his mom, who take him back home.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines of this movie is the kid who takes his money just takes it and darts off across the street, and Omri yells out, "You don't deserve that hair!" As if his hair was like cool.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Just one of those like throwaway lines.
You don't deserve that.
Kind of a
hair.
non sequitur, you know. It was just so out of place. I loved
This movie
it.
had so many unintentionally funny moments.
I laughed. That was
You don't
there
deserve that.
There were 2 lines I laughed out loud at, and that one one was one of them. But he gets back home, and this is when Patrick discovers Little Bear, because he gets up to his room beforehand, and you know, I think Omri gets up there and starts talking to Little Bear, like checking in on him, and Patrick like sees him like over his shoulder. He's like, "What the heck happened?
Yeah.
What is this?" And that's when like Omri tells him, you put something in the cupboard, you shut the door, lock it, unlock it, it comes to life. And at this point, Patrick's, we should add another figurine to this collection. We should bring something else to life. And Omri at this point has heard Little Bear's spiel and was like, no, we can't do that. We're playing with someone's actual life.
Yeah.
Very wise of a 9-year-old to think,
Yeah.
you know, that far down the line. But needless to say, it happens again. It just does. Patrick does it when Omri's not looking. He puts the cowboy in there with his horse, brings it to life. And
Very country accent.
very good actor. Good character.
Yeah.
Boone
Boom.
and his horse, Darlin. And of course, he's got, you know, big old hat. He's got a gun, a pistol, cowboy boots, spurs, the whole 9 yards. He's an authentic cowboy from Texas, but
Yeehaw. He starts screaming as he comes out.
Yep.
What do cowboys not like, Andrew?
Indians. And he calls them a whole, you know, slew of slurs. You know. Redskin, Injun comes in.
Yeah.
They're
Establishing the hate and
Yeah.
the time frame, so it's not authentic here.
Yeah, but right away there is tension, and the boys have to break that tension, essentially. Patrick and Omri both realize the gravity of the situation at their hands. They have 2, like, miniature live humans in their room. What do you do with that? How do you reconcile the situation?
And they're trying to fight too.
Yeah.
And then so
what do? They take them to school. They put them in their fanny pack and take them to school.
Before that, didn't they separate them and then they woke up to like a fight?
Yeah, they put Boone in like the bottom like sock drawer, and they let Little Bear live in his longhouse or whatever. Patrick went home.
And Boone's like, that savage over there is going to scalp you in your sleep.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that.
There's all like stereotypical like, you know, dialogue of hatred.
And then Little Bear's like, he's going to murder the family
Yeah.
while you sleep. And it's just like, some heavy stuff for a 9-year-old to be hearing.
It is heavy, but you buy into it because the whole stereotype of cowboys and Indians is, I mean, it's a stereotype for a reason. It
But
existed.
then they get to another stereotype that they didn't intentionally mean to get to. Me and Blair were laughing so hard at this part.
Which was this?
So you mentioned they both get into the little fanny pack
Yeah.
and go to school.
Yeah.
And then they're starting to bond. But what are they bonding over?
I don't.
How they need a woman in their life
Oh,
to cook and clean
yep.
and do all
the work.
So I was like, misogyny brings us all together.
Yeah, yeah.
So failed Bechdel test immediately.
I mean, this movie did not pass.
Not even close.
Not even close. Because you had the
You're
mom.
you're not a savage. You hate women just like I do.
And doesn't like Little Bear call Omri like a woman at one point?
Yeah, he's like, you cook and clean, you're a woman.
Yes.
Neither one of these characters are not misogynistic. Like, Little Bear wants a wife so he could have kids. and I think Boone mentions the same thing.
But they also want the wife to do all the things that they don't want to do. So
I found that hilarious.
And
That
I
their
think
bonding moment was.
I think it was supposed to be funny, honestly.
I guess I don't. It was a '90s movie, so we'll claim
It was, but like, also those people, Little Bear and Boone, probably like actually believed that stuff. Probably did.
Probably most people still do.
Yeah, especially ones from Kentucky and Alabama.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Welcome home. Roll Tide.
But anyways, where were we? They're in the fanny pack. They come home. I think Patrick and
him and while they're in the fanny pack at school,
That's right.
They
They
get in the fight,
they almost were revealed.
And
The
this-
secret was revealed.
and this teacher. Now this is where Omri, the actor, had actually bad acting in this one, but I think it's not bad acting from him, but bad guidance and direction.
Maybe
Because they're kind of fighting because Patrick's about to show.
he's trying to open the fanny pack
and
to show
all
other
the kids.
students.
Yeah, the teacher, who's a really like kind-hearted teacher, wants to talk to Omri about his book report because he thinks his book report's really fascinating. And he's like, "Well, how'd you come up with that idea about the Indian?"
Why are you so focused on the Iroquois nation?
Yeah,
What's happening here?
He's like, fascinating. I love where you're going with this.
Yeah.
And he's seeing Patrick in the distance, like like zip the fanny pack, and Omri runs over and starts yelling at Patrick, like, "You can't do that! You can't do that!" And so they start arguing, and the teacher comes over and goes, "What's going on here?" Patrick's like, "There's something in the fanny pack." Basically, he's like, "Well, let me see what's in your fanny pack," which is a red flag for any teacher to be saying.
And then this is where Omri's like, "They're just plastic." He repeats the word plastic that Little Bear says, or that's how Little Bear says the word plastic.
Yeah, but I don't know if Boone knew what that. I don't know. Maybe Little Bear got the information to Boone.
I think,
but anyway,
it was relayed.
But anyway, and the funny part about all this is while the teacher's trying to look in the fanny pack, you see Omri, and they go wide angle, and you see Omri, and he's just like beating on the stairway. And
I didn't see that.
Trying to be angry, but
didn't
he's
see
not
that.
hitting the stairway. So it's like, that's what I was saying, bad direction, because it was so out of place. And if that point they should have cut it, went like zoomed in on it, but like they caught him. He's like punching his like fist and hitting the stage. And I know the director told him to do that.
Good job, Frank Oz.
Yeah, or the cinematographer. Somebody got him with that one. But anyway,
I missed that. I wish I had seen it.
You'll have to go back.
Too
and
funny.
rewatch it. Yeah, quick little burst of movement.
But Patrick pulls out Boone and Little Bear, and they are like frozen. Like they are literally like physically, holding their positions as their figurines, so it looks like they aren't.
And Boone's even holding his hat above his head.
Yep.
Like posing.
Yep. And the teacher's like, "Oh, okay, well, put those away and y'all make up. Get past this."
Yeah.
But anyways, we're getting towards the end here because they get home. Boone and Little Bear have, met on common ground. They're amigos.
Here's what I'm bringing up: bad parenting number 2 and 3 here. So it goes back home, and it's raining. It's like pouring rain outside, and these weird kids dressed all in black show up and take the older brother into the city, right?
Yeah.
So like
Something like that.
So it's late on a school night, and they just left this kid to like leave out.
Well, I think it's a Friday now. I think we're at the end of the week.
Is it a Friday?
I think we're at the end
Well,
of the
then I'll
week.
recoil this. But those kids were up to no good. You could call me judgmental all you want, but I knew when I got into a group of friends like that, we were egging cars and destroying other people's property.
I mean,
that late at night with the pouring rain.
They lived a different lifestyle in Brooklyn, New York. It wasn't the same as, suburbia, Alabama, or
So you mean that they
Kentucky,
weren't destroying property?
They could have been. So they very well could have been.
You think they were going to church and
On a Friday?
at that late at night?
Maybe they're going to temple.
It was pouring
Maybe it
rain.
wasn't church. Maybe it was temple.
Yeah,
But did they do that on Saturday? Is that when?
exactly.
Okay.
These kids were up to no good.
Yeah, they were up to no good. They
Yeah.
were going to smoke some reefer
The devil lettuce.
behind the dumpster down the street.
If you're lucky, that's all they were doing.
Yeah. Before we get to like the final few scenes here, there was one somewhat important scene that I think happened a few back. Omri gets home and his brothers are in his room looking at Little Bear's longhouse. And they're like, wow, this is really cool. Omri, did you make this? That's awesome. Meanwhile, Little Bear's hiding underneath like the space heater in the room, like cowering in fear. Omri, to get his brothers out of the room, he fucking yeets the rat in the
kicks it
rat
like a
ball.
soccer ball.
He kicks like a soccer ball all the way down the hallway, down the stairs. This rat goes flying. And I think it's an important piece of the plot.
Because I think it breaks the ball. Right? Like,
Yes.
I think that's what broke the ball because Omri kicks it to get them out of the room and they go chasing instead of just beating the dog shit out of their brother, which he probably should have done. Yeah. Because they weren't even like doing anything.
They were just looking at the...
He said, Omri, this is amazing. How'd you make this? He literally says that. And then he goes in there and kicks the rat down the stairs.
But Omri didn't want them finding out about the little people that lived in his room.
Yeah,
so
I think you could have done something
little bit
better
different.
than like murder a rat.
But it's important to mention because to get back at Omri, the brother goes and steals the cupboard. So when they come back that night, Patrick and Omri, the cupboard isn't in the room.
Yeah.
And the key cannot be found. Eventually, brother gives away his secrets, and it's in one of the crawl spaces downstairs. He gets it, but there's no key.
Yeah.
They get the cupboard back in the room. There's no key, though, so they can't bring anything back to life. They can't send Little Bear or Boone back to where they came from. So they decide to sit on the bed and watch Van Halen's music video.
See,
Girls.
So after the brother leaves, like in the point where I was talking about, so bad parenting number 3. There's like Patrick and this kid are watching Motley Crue's Girls.
Oh, sorry, not did I say Van Halen? I meant Motley Crue. Yeah.
So they were watching.
Same difference.
Yeah, whatever. If you guys care out there, then you're the problem. But they're watching that music video, and it is a saucy one.
It's a bunch of women like dancing in a strip club. They're clothed.
And that's what Boone's like, this is despicable.
Yeah, and
disgusting.
Little Bear's not too enthused by it either.
Yeah, he was like,
they're scantily clad.
Yeah, just also not helping the misogyny here.
Yeah, but then they change it. They change the channel, and it's National Geographic or Animal Planet. It's a bunch of elephants. They changed again, and what is it, Chase? It's a movie.
Or it's like,
it's a movie. It's definitely a movie.
It's like a kind of like going back to the John Wayne era. Like
it's a bunch of like cowboys
fight
like
between the cowboys
slaughtering a bunch of Native Americans.
Right, and then Boone gets all worked up.
He's like, yeah, kill them Indians. He literally says something like that.
And keep in mind, Boone and Little Bear have started to become friends.
They are friends
at this point.
They're amigos, as
right.
Little Bear would say.
They're amigos. They bonded over their hatred of women.
They have common ground. They're human. It was a nice
yeah,
come to earth
but
moments.
all of a sudden, for whatever reason, Boone can't put 2 and 2 together, and he snaps back into like his savage ways.
And meanwhile,
and Little Bear's freaking out.
He's having PTSD.
Yeah, he's like a Vietnam War veteran.
I was gonna say it's the Vietnam meme of like the cat like looking at like the helicopters in the sky or whatever. It's that he's having PTSD.
So he pulls out his bow and arrow and he
Shoots
shoots
him.
Boone. And Boone is like, so Patrick has his knees up, right, like you would in bed, and Boone
Boone's
is
on-
standing on it like it's a mountaintop, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And Boone goes, Little Bear, with the arrow sticking out of his chest.
It hits him right above the heart, and he topples. What would be 2 feet is hundreds of feet. To him.
So he would have been dead regardless.
Yeah,
So
but luckily he fell on bed and bedding.
that would have been as hard as a rock as a 3-inch figure.
Would have been difficult.
It'd be like falling hundreds of feet into snow.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have saved you either. But he
Hits him in a very vulnerable spot.
So
and-
now they've got a conundrum because they need the medic.
but they don't have the key.
They don't have the key to the cupboard. It's raining. And before this, when the mom checked on Patrick and She said, hey, your brother's rat's loose under the floorboards. He must have gotten under the loose floorboard in your bed. And so Omri's freaking out because he knows his giant rat's going to come out and eat them. And so that's another fear going on right now.
Yep. So they decide to take turns. Patrick goes to sleep first. Omri stays awake to keep guard on injured Boone and Little Bear, who's attending to his wounds.
Yeah.
And then
they fall asleep.
They both fall asleep. Omri falls asleep on the floorboards. Patrick is in Omri's bed. But Omri's awoken by the rat. He hears it like scurrying like right underneath. And at this point, and I guess he's trying to like get the rat. He
sees the key in the floorboard.
He goes to the area in where he hears the rat. He sees a giant like hole, a loose floorboard. He pulls it up, and then on the side of that, he sees the key that fell down into the crack.
And it's like, it's nestled in this crack. And Omri does a horrible job of trying to get it out because he just pushes it back further.
Yeah, it was what you'd expect a 9-year-old to do.
Not push it.
I mean, I guess. He sees the key. He sees an avenue to get the rat out. And who volunteers to go into the little crawl space underneath the floorboard but our brave Little Bear. Little Bear.
So Little Bear feels really bad for what he did. Because when he snaps out of his, like, I guess survival instinct
it was
at
survival
that point.
Instinct. It wasn't anything.
So he now knows he has to get this key to get the medic. Because he's seen the medic and he knows that he can help.
Yeah.
There's a little funny line in here where Omri tries to put him through the crack, and he's like, I'm too big. And he starts laughing. He goes, I'm too big.
It wasn't. It didn't hit for me.
Yeah, it didn't hit for me either. It was just dumb dialogue. They forced there.
When I say it didn't hit, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, but I didn't laugh.
I laughed because of how absurd it was and bad. But again, the dialogue in this movie is bad to trash at some points. So he puts Little Bear under the floorboard, and you hear all this commotion.
You can hear the rat like squeaking and like scurrying about, and you can hear Little Bear like running around just, with his tiny feet and crawling up whatever, space he can to evade, attack. But not to spoil a happy ending, but he gets out. He gets the key.
Yeah.
It's dramatic.
I mean, because he pulls Little Bear out, and he's got the key
dangling
around
on his
foot.
foot.
Yeah, which that key would have been super
so heavy
yeah,
for a little 2-inch Little Bear. But
that would have been like you having like a support beam on you.
That'd be me like having like, I don't know, like a rope with like 100-pound weight tied to it or something.
No way.
Maybe not 100-pound, but like 70 pounds. My foot would
be... That key was bigger than he was.
Yeah, his foot was flexed too. My foot wouldn't even be able to flex. I'd tear like my shin muscle or soleus or something.
So another flaw there. But they pull him out and they get the key. So they get the medic. The medic comes out and helps the cowboy. It happens all so quickly.
Steve Coogan, once again, saves him. He shoots him up with some stuff and
morphine probably. So now Boone's addicted.
Sends him back to 1860 Texas, a heroin addict. Can you imagine?
So Boone has a morphine addiction now. Then they send the medic back.
Yeah.
And
send him back to World War I. He goes back to trench warfare.
Right. He's like,
dark.
I'm sure this life would have been far better.
I mean, he mentioned that. He was like, oh, this is a dream. It's better than real life. Roaches gnawing on German soldiers is not fun to see. He literally says something like that.
So they're
roaches and rats.
They're concerned with keeping these dudes in this alternate reality, which is a pain for them, and then sending that guy back to his painful reality.
Yeah.
Which I found really dumb and odd. Like, why those two? This is where this is where we get to the end. At that point, then they realize, because Boone's getting better, they're like, we have to go back.
We got to send him back to his family. We got to get Little Bear back to his nephew and brother, his tribe and everything. So
and then all of a sudden, this takes a real weird turn where Little Bear wants Omri to be his nephew.
Yeah, it was. He was entered. The movie interjected.
Didn't like this dream sequence at all.
I thought it was fine. Again, childhood imagination. I thought it was more than fine. Before this, as soon as they got the key out and Little Bear, this is before they turned, Tommy into an actual living medic. The rat, when it jumped out of the floorboard, scared the shit out of me.
Yes, that was terrifying.
The jump scare got me, and I don't get jump scared very easily.
But let's talk about the real hero. It was Patrick.
Patrick he caught that fucking rat in midair.
Yeah, caught it in midair.
And then took it up to his brother and said, "Here, bitch, take your stupid fucking...
kicked it back down the stairs.
Your vermin, get it out of here."
Yeah, that did scare me.
Because I guess I was so entranced in the moment. I actually was. So
I mean, they did it on purpose because
Yeah,
it
for
scared
sure.
me as a kid.
the music was swelling. You were trying to see if Little Bear was going to come out clean and unscathed, and then boom, there comes that filthy vermin jumping out of the floorboard.
But in New York too, it was probably the cleanest rat in New York.
It was very white.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of dirt on it. It had a nice coat of fur, so
Yeah.
looked clean.
But now we're back, and then before he sends Little Bear back, he has this like little weird fantasy of Little Bear as an actual adult human, and Omri is like looking at him.
It wasn't just it didn't come out of nowhere. Little Bear, when he was taken from his actual life to be transported into Omri's reality, he was with his brother and his nephew
Teaching him,
to be a man.
yeah, to be a man.
The ritual was that they let him go into the woods for a few
Right,
months, and he
'cause
survives
they
on his
were-
own and comes back. And if he doesn't come back, then he wasn't ever meant to be.
So they're teaching him to be a man, and then he said in real life, if Omri was in his world, he would be his nephew, which is not how that works.
They were somehow connected through the void.
Can you imagine, though, if Little Bear put Omri into the cupboard and brought him back, and then people would be like, who's this little white child you're bringing here?
Give him 20 lashings and hold him over the fire. He needs to learn.
Throw a blanket of smallpox on him.
They also, Boone, we didn't mention that, Boone and Little Bear bonded over smallpox.
Yeah, they did, because didn't...
Boone lost his daughter or something like
yeah,
that.
and didn't Little Bear lose his wife or somebody?
Yeah, his wife.
Yeah.
So they each lost someone they loved to smallpox.
Yeah, crazy.
So-
They tie it all together there. But anyway, they have this little dream sequence where it just shows the connection between Omri and Little Bear, that cultures can coincide together. Omri ends up sending them back in this like really dramatic moment.
It was.
Because they had to pose, apparently.
They had to get back into their figurine state, which it was fine. And Omri starts crying because the little friends that he's made over the past week are now going back to their reality forever, and he's not going to see him again because he's not going to be playing that game.
You know, in about a week or two, he's going to get the urge to put them in the cabinet.
Pretty sure Lynn Reed Banks wrote sequels to this
Yeah,
movie, or this
had to.
book. But yeah, that was an emotional scene. Like, that's when it all hit me. Like, I wouldn't say it all hit me, but like that was like the defining moment. Or like, all right, this trip of your childhood imagination is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Say goodbye.
And then the movie really ends with the kid talking about JFK.
So Omri has, his little send-off, and he talked about sending Boone, and I think it was just Little Bear, back, and how he will miss them, but he won't worry about him anymore because that chapter has come and gone. And that is like a succinct ending. The teacher's like, very nice, Omri, very creative and thoughtful. Sam, he says something like, and one day JFK was killed.
Yeah, and it's
Literally.
like as that music is swelling, and it goes to the zoomed in shot of Omri as he's like just smiling, and they're talking about JFK's assassination. To end this movie. Are you kidding me? Like,
and the music is swelling. It is the dramatic theme of
that they play
Over and over again.
Oh my God! Like I no matter if you were 100% Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, this music was used way too much.
Yeah.
So let's start with you. Like we
That's
just finished
pretty
it
much
up.
it.
Yeah, like
That's
we just finished it. So
there are a few things that I made note of that I want to to bring up. I think it's really just one thing. There were 2 Twin Tower scenes. Or sceneries. You knew it was going to happen.
So
You knew it
folks
was gonna
back home
happen.
who've been listening to us for this long, new listeners, welcome. Any 90s movie we watch that takes place in New York City, the Twin Towers are a focal point.
Yeah.
We mentioned it a lot, and so now we've just stopped mentioning it because it's just every movie. But it really is one of those things where they really use them as a staple of New York City.
Like
yeah,
it's
a
an
postcard.
It's an iconic landmark. It is what it is.
Every movie, and it's no exception here. They're in several scenes.
And usually some pretty stunning shots. Like
Very stunning.
in the background of a beautiful sunset.
Yes.
Sparkling,
off the towers,
sparkling in like the dusk. Like
you forget how beautiful those buildings were.
You forget.
You can't watch a New York 90s movie.
We didn't. I didn't mention that in the montage when Omri went to the hardware store, but I wanted to throw it in there.
Yeah, and I think it's in there a couple more times.
It is.
too.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That is the movie.
what's your childhood nostalgia versus your adult brain telling you right now?
I mean, honestly, man, it's hard for me to escape the nostalgia. I really didn't dislike this movie. I really didn't. I went into it thinking I was going to hate it. I didn't. I was fine. There's a few things we talked about. They're like, all right. But it wasn't anything that's like super glaring. It wasn't anything that wasn't super unbelievable. I thought the acting was pretty solid. Yeah, the writing was somewhat weak, but again, it's mainly driven by like two kids and a Native American and a cowboy from like the 1800s. I don't know. I very much enjoyed the watch. I really did. Like the moment when he closes that cupboard for the last time, and I teared up. I legitimately teared up. Got me. Like, yes, there's nostalgia there, and yes, there's a strong connection from when I was a kid, but I still very much enjoyed it.
That's the only part in the movie I think the music worked well, was the ending
I
shot.
never minded the repetitiveness of the theme and the music. There was maybe like one or two times where they did that close up and it swelled. I was like, all right, you could have cut that, but dude, I'm usually hypercritical, and maybe I am just biased towards this, but I did not have many issues with this movie whatsoever.
So
I enjoyed it, and I would watch it again.
So
I would watch it again.
I look at it this way. So I think you and I both had like extreme. You a little bit more than me had some nostalgia to this because I remembered all the lines. A lot of them took me back to playing in my parents' room with my action figures while watching this movie on VHS, because that was where we had our VHS player.
Yeah.
And remember all these scenes. I remember every last scene in this movie. It was crazy. That was what the biggest thing for me is. A lot of these movies I watch, I forget things. Like there's a few, like Batman and Robin, I remembered everything.
Yeah.
But like
I didn't. Everything came back to me with this one.
And there was something to be said about that, is how much I watched it. I hated this run of it.
Because I almost texted you like halfway through. I was like, no, I'll just hold it. I really liked it. I've tried to take the blinders off, and I have no problems with it.
I couldn't. It was so boring.
I thought it was sweet.
Now I do think that there's a lot of things that they try that is very modern in this movie. Like they try to like connect the cultures and everything.
Yeah. I think that worked. I think they did it in a very non-stereotypical way.
There's nothing about that was, I was like, oh, that didn't hold up. No, I don't think it was really well done. I thought the music was annoying. The acting was okay. The dialogue made what could be good acting bad. And, of course, you're with child actors, so you have to give them some sort of leash, right? Like, you can't be super critical, and I was not going to be critical on them. But they didn't direct them in the right way. Like, there's several mess-ups. The zoom shots are just weird.
I think some of the cinematography was some of the technical stuff, yeah. But
there's some good scenes in this movie that still, like, I would be like, wow, pinpoint that. The night scene with it raining and Boone falling off Patrick's knees. After watching that, I thought that was a really good scene that captivated me. I do agree with you at the end, the final scene where he shuts the cupboard. I was like, okay, that's there, But other than that, there's not a whole lot here I'm going to go back for. I'm glad I went back for the nostalgia of it. I don't think it was a great movie.
I think it was a lot better than a number of things we have watched up to this point. Truly believe that, and deep in my heart, like this, there isn't much meat to it. But you think about it, it takes place over the span of a week. It's about a boy who brings his little action figures to life and the relationships and little adventures that he goes on with them through the course of like 4 days. That's all it is.
But the thing about the adventures is they're
not even really adventures. It's just more of, how does he cope's not the word, but how he navigates
even the adventures, I was like, I wanted more. Like, I was like, we kind of glossed over everything, and then the movie's over.
I like that they kept it minimal. I don't know how to put it in words as to why I like it, but the secretive nature of it all, I think, is why I'm okay with it, because that is something that you wouldn't want to tell people. If you were Omri, I don't think I
Yeah,
would have ran and told and made it a big ordeal. You would have tried to keep it confined
No,
to
I
your
understand.
own world, your own corner of your own imagination. It's very personal.
Well,
It's very specific, and that's why I don't know. I think that like if they made it bigger and grander, it would kind of take away from that.
Well, I'm not even talking about those type of adventures. I'm talking about just seeing more of how Little Bear lived, or like how did he use those fucking tools that Omri stole from his dad?
But that's the imagination. Like you don't dive into it as much. You see what he made as a 9-10-year-old, or you're like, wow, that's so cool.
Well,
why can't I do that?
Well, the imagination's broken when they come into real life. It's not imagination anymore. This is real life. This is a real 3-inch person. That I want to see this 3-inch. I want to see him do everything. I want to see how he made that teepee.
A 9-year-old isn't going to think like that. He's just going to expect it. They're not going to think that deep.
I will say, the idea is there. I really like the idea of this movie. I think the book would be fun to go back and read. I feel like the book would be a good read.
I want to watch this again with like my mom and dad. I liked it that much. It really, I don't know. It hit me in a spot and stirred up some thoughts and feelings that, I haven't felt in a minute. And I think this is the quintessential nostalgic movie for myself. And maybe my blinders are still on. Maybe they are. But like I said, I try to look at everything from a very, not a judgmental lens, but I try to look at everything from a fair point of view. And I really didn't see a lot of faults in this one. And I respect why someone wouldn't care for it. But man, I don't want to say I loved it on the rewatch, but I really liked it. I really, really liked it, and there's no going back from that.
I understand that level of it. I don't know. After the first 10 minutes, when the nostalgia started wearing off and we got into the meat of it, I was like, this is boring. There's not much to this. Once the childhood imagination, when they wore off, when they came into reality mode, I was like, they're just little people. And I didn't get a feel from this at all. I didn't like it. Like it was weird. Maybe it caught me at the wrong time. If it catches me the right day, mediocre at best.
And I don't know. I think I need to watch it again. Maybe come down from whatever nostalgia high I'm on. But
that's why we do this.
That's why we do it.
Because like it can show you that like no matter what. And I'm sure there's a couple movies in my past that we'll get to down the road that I have protected by nostalgia, that I will not say a bad thing that you and Kyle may rip to shreds.
I think this might be one for me, but, yeah, man.
And I think when we look at the IMDb rating, which do you know what it is?
I do.
So I think when we look at that, I think it's going to reflect your review of it more than it does mine.
Wrong.
Does it?
I think so. Well, because I know what I would give it compared to what the IMDb rating is. So it's an even 6.
On IMDb?
Yeah, I thought it would be higher. I legitimately thought it'd be higher.
Too. Nope. Because you're probably going to give it in the 7s, right?
No, maybe.
What would you give it?
6.9 is what I'm going to give it.
6.9?
Yeah. I could go 7.1, but if I'm being fair and critical, weak script, some of the technical elements as opposed to like the cinematography, not that great. Special effects, though, we didn't really touch upon that. I thought they were solid, but like 6.9 altogether is what I would give it because it harkens on a sense of feeling that certain movies don't hit with me, and overall don't think it's that bad of a movie.
I give it a 4.2.
Jesus, that's low.
Yeah.
Damn. I think that's harsh. I think that's
really
harsh.
That's how I felt.
I think Chase here doesn't have a heart. I think that's what we're getting to today. Because I don't know how you can't watch that movie and not feel something. Like I
didn't say it. I didn't say I didn't feel anything. I know when to pull that back and say if it's a good movie or not.
I think he's overcompensating. He's overcompensating for the emotions that he's feeling.
I do give the 4.
4.2.
I tell you where that comes from. The 4.2 is the imagination of it. Like when they do give you that imagination, it works really well. And I do think there are too many good characters in it too. We need, other than the Mohawk kid, there's not a true asshole in this world. And Boone is supposed to be kind of your antagonist for a little bit, and then he's supposed to come around. They don't even give him enough time to do that. So you never see anybody's full circle moments throughout this movie. And maybe it's a movie that needs to be longer.
I was going to say, an hour and 38. They didn't
hard to do it.
They didn't make them very long back in the day.
No.
They kept them short and sweet, which I appreciate.
I do too. And that's why I gave it the 0.2 comes from the not being 2 hours.
I bet Kyle would have liked this movie. I bet Kyle. I don't think he'd be.
Kyle would.
I don't think he would be in complete agreement with me, but I think he'd be more on my side than yours. I really do.
I'm curious. This is why he's got to come back to the show.
No. This is why he's staying off, because we're never going to leave this high point of my feeling regarding Indian.
Does it hold up?
Yes.
You know what I'm going to say.
Are you going to say no?
I'm going to say no.
Wow.
It doesn't hold up.
I think it holds up. I said I would want to watch this again. I would want to watch it with my parents.
I think that's why I'm being very harsh, is because I have so much nostalgia for this movie, and I was bored out of my mind, and I think that makes me angry and make me probably a little bit more critical. Maybe I should calm down. Maybe me and Andrew need to just go back and rewatch this. Should this be our first redox?
I honestly want to rewatch it, and I think the fact that I want to rewatch it says something. I don't know if that is more...
I don't want to watch this again.
I do. I legitimately want to see...
I want to put this movie in a cupboard itself and bury it.
And what would it turn into if you put it in the cupboard?
Big pile of dog shit.
Is that how the rules work?
Yeah.
You put a VHS.
You put fake dog shit into a cupboard. It comes out as real dog shit.
Oh, little asshole over here. Mr. Contrarian, you're really going into that world today. No, I want to watch this again to see whether I am high in the sky or if you're just full of that dog shit.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that's the latter. I think in this situation, Chase is just wrong. And that's okay. We can live with that. We can all live with Chase being wrong.
Well, right or wrong, you know what we do here, which is always right. We reach deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they hold up. Today, we pulled The Indian from the cupboard and found out we don't really know. Andrew knows. I think I know. But we'll leave it up to you. You're the deciding vote. We need Kyle back so he can be the deciding vote.
We should have a little, hold up just a minute, where we just pick Kyle's brain about it. We make him watch it, and then we're like, hey, what do you think?
Could be coming down the pipe.
It could be.
Do you know what we're doing next?
Debbie Does Dallas.
That's not what we're doing next.
Oh, shit. I got the wrong memo then.
But you could know what we're doing next. Follow us on Instagram. We will tell you what we're doing next. And in the meantime, we'll see you every Thursday for a new Hold Up episode. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.